Mismatches and advantages. Who's got them this Saturday?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. Whether you are watching the show on YouTube or wherever you want to download your podcast, this show is free. I appreciate your support. Do me a favor, show yours. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. When you see the thumbs up, hit it. And I don't want you to miss one episode. Hit that bell notification button, and you're covered. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On, and you can get started. Former boxer and trainer Freddie Roach, he once said, styles make for great fights. I don't know if anybody out there is a boxing fan. I used to love the sport. Kind of gone downhill in a while lately. But anyways, what he was really saying is that anybody could potentially be anybody else, regardless of, size, strength, when you common opponent, whatever. On any given time, something can happen. I want to stay on that boxing tangent one more time here. Paul Feinbaum, SEC honk. He said that Colorado actually has a puncher's chance in this game against USC on Saturday. Now, I'm not sure if USC is supposed to be Mike Tyson and he meant Colorado as Buster Douglas. However, the longer this fight goes, USC will be pulling away. I cannot see Colorado somehow throwing a knockout blow against USC in this game. And since USC will be playing Oregon later in the season, you kind of have to like the style, at least, the fight that Oregon brought to Colorado up in Eugene. Now, I have by far some of the smartest Trojan fans out there who follow this show every day. Thank you. One of them, and I've mentioned his name before, I think it's a he, is HR Pick'em Stuff. Love that name. He brought up some potential mismatches and advantages in the comment section on the YouTube channel. And he actually described them as his concerns. So I said to myself, you know what? That's a really good topic. Let's explore it. That's what we're going to talk about here in the first segment. Advantages and mismatches. In the second segment, you can see USC's defense creates negativity, not the way you think. And we're going to talk about the Heisman versus a Heisman wannabe. So first, I mentioned on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC that Trojans already have 16 sacks. Well, HR Pick and I'm going to call him HR Pick for short, or how about just Stuff and we're on the same page, and I agree that USC defensive line has a huge advantage over Colorado's quarterback, Shadeur Sanders. Colorado's offensive line is just really bad. I mean, they don't even really try and run the ball every game at all, mostly because they can't. And as a result of this, Sanders, he's already been sacked 22 times this season. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised he's made it this far. And I'm concerned that he won't make it out of this game. And I'm not hoping or wishing for an injury, but, let's just be real about this. It's reality in football. Players get injured, and the quarterback position gets hit often. And so, maybe this could be a knockout blow. Hopefully he doesn't get knocked out of the game. But knockout blow meaning Colorado cannot afford to have Shadeur not in the game, whether it be for a play, a series, whatever. Now, so that's one advantage you're going to give to USC, and it's a huge mismatch advantage. What about, though, on the outside? If we're looking at it from USC's defensive perspective and looking at Colorado. Who has the advantage between Colorado Buffalo's wide receiver, Jimmy Horn, if he's matched up against USC cornerback, Sear Wright? I think people are thinking, you know what? Colorado might have the advantage here. In the last game that USC played, Sear was he was last seen pounding his fist in the end zone after the Sun Devil wide receiver, I believe it was Elijah Badger, caught a 25-yard touchdown pass. And this isn't just about Sear, because I've talked about this ad nauseum about the Trojan cornerbacks having trouble locating the ball when they're in coverage. They always tend to have their back to the play. So this is what Sear said the other day after he had spent 30 minutes after practice on Tuesday working on turning his head when the ball was in the air. Quote, "I just have to work on getting my head around faster. I'm in position sometimes, but I don't get my head around in that situation. You live and you learn. Next time, I'll definitely make the play," end quote. He tried to explain what goes into the timing. When is the right time to turn and look for the ball? And he said, it's definitely like a split-second decision. And that's also a way you don't get pass interferences or anything like that. It's just being comfortable in the moment. Honestly, whenever the ball's in the air, end quote. All right, so that's how Sear sees it and describes just getting better at locating the ball, getting his head around to see it when he's in pass coverage. Now, if speed is part of the equation, are you going to put Damani Jackson on Colorado's fastest receiver? I'm not sure if that's Joe Horn or if that's Xavier Weaver. We know Travis Hunter isn't playing, so we know it's not going to be him. So who is Colorado's top target? And, by the numbers, it's Xavier Weaver. He's got 34 catches, and he's getting over 13 yards per touch or per attempt when he catches the ball. Next is Joe Horn. He's got 27 receptions. And then you got the tight end, Michael Harrison. He's got he touches the ball. Well, I shouldn't say he touches. He gets at least 4 receptions per game. He's got 17 through their first 4 games. Now, whatever perceived advantages Colorado might have at the skill positions versus USC's pass coverage, as I mentioned a few moments ago up at the top, the Trojans make up for it big time up front. They just have a big advantage there. So what the Ducks essentially did is they abandoned defending the run game. And they just focused on getting to Sanders and limiting his time to survey the field. And this is an advantage for USC, for USC secondary. Because if USC's rush ends and defensive linemen, Bear Alexander, Solomon Byrd, my name's just slipping my mind right now. Stanley Taufo, Jack Sullivan, Keon Bars, if any of these guys, Tyrone Taleni, if they can just keep getting the push and getting in the backfield, everything will be fine. I really do. I need to emphasize that Shadeur Sanders has already been sacked 22 times this season in 4 games, 7 times in each of the last 2. So the Trojans, they have to be able to match that number, if not do better. Otherwise, if they're not getting pressure on Shadeur Sanders, now all of a sudden that advantage that USC supposedly had, Sanders is going to have enough time to sit back there and pick USC's secondary apart, and that can't happen. Snap into action, the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a simple $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, now there's no better time than right now to get in on the action. The app is easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including point spreads, player prop bets, over-unders, and there's a whole lot more. You need to go check it out. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. College football season is here, and this season, Locked On is kicking up our coverage. Each Friday, Locked On will go live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. Locked On College Football Live will cover the college football playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in-depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You're not going to want to miss it. So, USC's defense has been a point of contention since Lincoln Riley brought Alex Grinch along with him from Oklahoma. Anytime the Trojans defense gets mentioned, it brings up negativity. However, the defense also creates its own negativity, but in a good way. Check out these numbers. USC forces their opponents into negative plays or turnovers on 17% of their defensive snaps. Where does that rank nationally? Okay. How about third best in the FBS? James Madison, 17.9%. Kansas at 17.8%. Okay. USC's defense is also tied for the nation's lead in the following categories. Sacks, 16. Tackles for loss, 41 throughout 4 games so far. That's good for first overall. They're not tied. They're first overall. And forced fumbles, they've got 8. That's tied for first as well. So what does that mean? I think it means the Trojans defense is making plays. I don't know how else you spin that. Jamil Muhammad, through 4 games so far, he's got 15 tackles, 5 of which are for a loss, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Pretty good. Against Arizona State, he had 8 tackles, 3 of which were TFLs, and 1 sack. Does anybody think Solomon Byrd is feeling at home playing defensive end right now? His 4-game total, 14 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, which, by the way, leads the team. He's got 4.5 sacks, which also leads the team. 3 forced fumbles, which leads the team. He also has he's forced a fumble in 3 straight games. He's the first Trojan to do this, forcing a fumble in 3 straight games since George Uko, and that was from 2011 through 2012, so over a course of 2 seasons. He's the first Pac-12 player with a forced fumble in 3 straight games since Cal's Jordan Kunasek. I apologize for the pronunciation. That happened in 2018. And Solomon is looking to become the first FBS player with a forced fumble in 4 straight games since Fresno State's David Perales in 2020. So right now, you can see that Solomon's having a fantastic season. Let's make sure this guy is earning whatever NIL he can. Help that guy out. He's got a family to feed. What about Shane Lee? He's been exceptional this season. In his 3 games that he's played, he's been available for all 4, by the way. 12 tackles, 7 of which are solo, 1 TFL, 1 sack. Somehow or another, for whatever reason, he got lost on the sidelines against Arizona State, did not play. Against Arizona State, the Trojans gave up a 4th down conversion in the 4th quarter that turned into a 52-yard touchdown, and it gave the Sun Devils their 4th touchdown of the game. How they got to their 28th point. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go check out what USC's numbers were, or what they are, stopping third and 4th down conversions. I want to see where USC's defense is on those critical parts of the game. Utah leads the nation, stopping third down conversions. They are literally just a tick under 20%, 19.6% to be precise. Oregon is next in the conference at number 34 in the country. They're allowing 32.73% conversions on third down. That's actually pretty good. USC is next in conference, and they are number 36 in the country. They're only giving up 33.33% percentage on third downs. So as far as I'm concerned, Oregon, USC, they're even Steven. 32.73 versus 33.33. Whatever. USC on fourth down, they've given up 5 fourth downs for first downs. I don't like that number. Now, usually USC is well ahead. Other teams are going for it on fourth down. It hasn't hurt them yet. Well, you say, well, what about the 28, the touchdown that Arizona State scored to give them 28 points? Yeah, it made the score closer. But I'm going to show you why that's a but here in just a second. I don't think USC fans on defense have to be worried about other teams converting their fourth down conversions. If you're going for it on fourth down, that means your defense is getting the job done, mostly. Excuse me. Now, Colorado on offense, their third down conversions. They're 43rd in the nation. They're through 4 games. They've converted 27 of 60 attempts. That's 45%. For what it's worth, USC on offense converts on third down 47% of the time. Now, because USC's defense creates so many tackles for loss and gets into the backfield as frequently as they do, again, they've already got 16 sacks so far. This is where the game will be won or lost. Colorado is going to be faced with a lot of third downs, a lot of third and longs. So as long as USC's offense does what everyone anticipates this game, what they should do in this game, I said it on yesterday's episode. This could literally be a cakewalk. This could be a game where USC's defense really looks the part. USC's pass defense gives up 55.5 completion percentage to the opponent. That's third best in the Pac-12. Washington, 50.6%. Utah, 53.1%. So, again, maybe USC's defense isn't as bad as it's being perceived. This is why we don't use stats to build our argument. But I'm just kind of trying to show you where they are in relation to the other 2 good defenses in the conference. USC's third. Their pass defenses. USC's defenses also, they're only averaging giving up 20 points per game. They gave up 28 to San Jose State, 28 to Arizona State, 14 and 10 in between. That's 20. So if USC, if they only give up 20 points to Colorado, and USC continues to put up their customary 42 plus points per game, they're going to cover that 21.5 point line that they were picked to win the game by. Something else is USC's defense has had multiple takeaways in each of their last 2 games. And the Trojans, by the way, they're 9-0 under Lincoln Riley when they record at least 2 takeaways in the game. I mean, check this out. If you didn't know who you were watching or who I was talking about, you would think this is actually one of the top defenses in the country. As I said a moment ago, this is why you don't like to use stats to tell the whole story. Because imagine how much better these numbers would actually be if tackling was more fundamentally sound. Last week on the road, USC's offense left a lot of opportunities, a lot of meat on the bone. We talk about the Heisman winner versus the Heisman wannabe, or the wannabe Heisman winner. So, just to kind of remind everybody, put into perspective where USC's offense kind of, I hate to use the word, sucked last week, because when you put up 42 points, you didn't really suck. But this is where the bar is for USC. They should have, and they'll be the first to admit it, they should have done more. I mean, a combined 13 points in the second and third quarters, and only 6 points in the third quarter off of 2 field goals. Still, Caleb had terrific numbers. At the end of the game, he was responsible for all 5 of the team's touchdowns, 3 through the air, 2 on the ground. He had over 300 yards passing, 322, no interceptions. And he leads the country in total touchdowns, 15 passing, 3 running, no interceptions. And what's remaining of the current version, well, I'm going to go right by that. Besides Caleb Williams, you have Michael Penix. You've got up at Washington. You've got who, I don't know if you ever watched him play. He kind of throws like these 50-yard lawn dart lobs for touchdowns. He just throws the ball so effortlessly. In the conference, you've got Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Bo Nix up at Oregon, who, he had his way against Colorado. And then you've got Shadeur Sanders at Colorado. So these are all NFL talent caliber, NFL level talented caliber quarterbacks. It's a lot of description, probably too much. Shadeur Sanders, he's got that NFL arm talent. He's not as mobile or as dynamic as Caleb Williams when he's moving around in the pocket. But he does know how to move and run when he wants to. So that could be something that USC's defense probably sees more of on Saturday. I think you're going to see some more designed runs for Shadeur, at least to try and keep USC's run defense honest. You're not going to get a lot of productivity from their running backs. So is Coach Primetime, is he going to do everything to have his team prepared to win the game? And, does that mean he's going to rely on his best player, who he still has available, his son, his quarterback, Shadeur? Because Travis Hunter, he's not going to be available. And so even without Travis, you still have a sufficient amount of skill players on the outside that he can work with. So is Colorado, is his goal going to be to get as many completions as possible with a short and that intermediate pass, the safe pass? Because that's typically how Colorado moves the ball. And then all of a sudden, boom, they'll get a quick strike going downfield. This is how USC's defense has to prepare for Shadeur. Get to him quickly. Don't allow him to kind of stand back there and pick apart the secondary. So Shadeur, he can look good putting up a lot of completions, completing 5 to 10, that 5 to 10 yard route. Caleb is going to be putting up big numbers, especially if he feels like he had that poor performance in his first road game last week. That's just kind of his competitive fire. He's always going to want to, beat himself, what he did the previous week, and just get better. Colorado doesn't have that luxury of just, kind of shrugging their shoulders like Caleb does on a series now and then, where if he decides to throw a series away, trying to make something happen, I don't think Colorado and Shadeur Sanders has that leash, that same type of latitude in this game. Because if Colorado goes too many series without matching USC's scoring, you would eventually have too big of a hole. And at a certain point, if you're dropping back to pass too many times against USC's defense, especially their front, their rush ends and their defensive line, Alexander, Jamil Muhammad, Romello Height, Solomon Byrd, you're going to put your quarterback in harm's way. And I think that's the last thing Coach Primetime needs or wants to do after his other son went to the hospital after the game. Yeah. Shadeur Sanders, who plays defense for Colorado. Apparently, he was urinating blood after the loss to Oregon, and he was transported to the emergency room when they got back to Colorado. So his status, I guess, is still up in the air regarding this game with USC. His dad said, quote, he's doing better. We went to the hospital right after we landed. He's doing much better. We're praying that he heals and that he's playing this weekend. He's a valuable part of our secondary and our team defensively. So, again, I would love, hopefully he's playing. I'd like to see everybody's best players out there. However, but back to the Caleb versus Sanders show. Who do you think is going to end up with the better numbers? I've got Caleb being responsible for at least 6 touchdowns through the air, and 2 using his feet. And he's also going to get his 300-plus yards throwing the ball. I've got Sanders going over 300 yards through the air, but he's going to have a couple of interceptions to go with his 3 touchdowns. So it'll be an overall decent showing, but again, this is why he will be the Heisman wannabe. All right, so I'll be back tomorrow with another episode, and we'll get some game predictions in, and then we'll talk about the game just one more time. And then I'll be back on Saturday at some point with my post-game reaction. Hopefully, I'll be in a much better mood than the one I did after Arizona State's game. And it'll definitely be much earlier in the day, since this is going to be a 9 a.m. kickoff and not a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Like I said, the last post-game reaction, I think I recorded that at like 3 in the morning. So a little bit of crankiness going on there. Until then, everyone, you know what to do.